Hey guys, a new Dota patch just dropped 7.3 BSR. There are huge nerfs to Tinker and Morphling and Slark. Let's talk about the changes and go through it together. Starting with the terrain changes, the bottom Radiant tier 1 tower has been moved slightly to the south. It's not a huge change, but this makes the rage creep last setting a little bit easier for the enemy offlane. There are also some added trees which doesn't change much, and there's a juke path to the east of the mid Radiant tier 2 tower which also is fine, I guess. There's no huge change in the terrain changes. Now the noodle item changes. The GD Pollen bag got buffed. The health restoration loss increased now from 20 to 30%, which makes it actually viable against heroes like Necro or Morph now. So it's a must-have against heroes like this in your team now. There's on Bloodrage got nerfed a little bit from 15 to 12%. Still one of the best items in tier 4. Especially on heroes like X or Pit Lord, which makes your call or your pit very, very huge. Should still pick it, although it got nerfed a little bit. Also, abilities that are considered attacks are no longer impacted by Death and Blood Red. I didn't even know this is a thing, actually. Next up is Giant's Maul. The Crushing Blow debuff duration decreased from 4 to 3 seconds. I think this item wasn't really strong on tier 4 and they nerfed it again only on heroes like Kunkka or heroes that have like huge damage on the first hit like Tiny. This is viable. There are most of the time better options in my opinion. Magnifying Monocle got nerfed a little bit. The bonus cast range is decreased from 125 to 100. Actually, fine nerf, I guess. This item is very strong on heroes that want to initiate, especially this increases also your dagger range on some heroes, so it's a quite nice nerf. Half of the dying got nerfed, got a huge nerf actually. Most of the time in late game you're dead for 100 seconds anyway, but this makes your buyback weaker actually, because if you die once with the Helm of the Undying, it goes on cooldown, and most of the time if you buy back and go into the team fight again, you would have this ready again, but this doesn't work anymore. The enchantment crude got changed a little bit. It got buffed by 10% on both levels, especially for heroes like Necro or Dazzle or Io. This is really strong, and now it got a nice buff. This was it actually with the neutral item changes. Now we go to the hero changes. Next up are the hero changes, starting with Anti-Mage. Anti-Mage, Magebane Mirror Facet got buffed a little bit. The mana burn percentage is increased by 30% at max level, which still makes it not a good facet. If you look on Dota Pro Tracker, it only has a 7% pick rate and 43% win rate. Still not a good facet. The mana thirst facet is way stronger on Anti-Mage. Next up is X. The counter Helix Scepter attack damage reduction got decreased from 15% to 12%. Not a huge nerf actually, but you will definitely feel it against heroes like Sven, Slark, or Tiny in the late game. But X is still viable, still one of the best offlane heroes you can pick right now. Beastmaster's Innate got a huge nerf. It doesn't increase block chance against towers anymore, which makes Beastmaster weaker in the early game, especially when diving towers, obviously. Uh, Beastmaster can't tank the tower anymore like he did before, so this makes him weaker in the laning stage. Bloodseeker's Old Blood facet got buffed a little bit, also a small nerf. It now has a 0.3 cast point when cast on units, not on Bloodseeker himself, and the bonus damage got increased by 5%. Didn't see much Bloodseeker in my games. Actually, didn't see no Bloodseeker at all in the new patch, so can't really talk about this facet. But I guess there could be some cool interactions with heroes like Terrorblade, which have huge base damage. So maybe we can see Bloodseeker now in some games. Bristleback's Snot Rocket facet got a huge nerf. They decreased the Nazagoo radius from 900 to 750, which means Bristleback now needs to stand in the fight way closer to the enemy, which means he can get stunned more easily and attack from the front or from the sides. And it's easier to like run away from Bristleback now. Maybe we see the other facet now picked more. Brother got a buff, the necrotic webs, which normally decreased your health regeneration and everything. And now this also affects the health restoration at the same values. Sand got a little bit nerfed, the horsepower facet max movement speed from 600 to 575. I actually played the other facet with the double edge damage a little bit. In my opinion, the double edge facet is way better anyway, so I don't think this will decrease his pick or win rate at all. Darkseer got a huge nerf. The Iron Shell duration, especially on level 4, got decreased, which means because you have a 9-second cooldown on Iron Shell, you can't triple shell in teamfights anymore. You only have a maximum of 2 shells now. Ward of Replica cast range also got nerfed from 1300 to 1000, which is a huge nerf actually for Darkseer. Makes it way harder to initiate now and place the wall in teamfights, in my opinion. Desert's Facet got buffed. The heal amplification is increased from 5 to 7.5%, which is an increase by 50%. Which is actually a nice buff for Dazzle, especially when Dazzle got nerfed in the last patch. He wasn't picked that much, in my opinion. Maybe this will make him viable again. The Disruptor Thunderstrike slow duration got decreased a little bit, which makes him weaker in the early game. Maybe you get 1 or 2 hits less from him when you're running from him, which is actually fine. In my opinion, Disruptor is really strong right now, especially with Max Glimpse. If you're out of position, most of the time you will just die in early game. Elder Titan's base movement speed got decreased from 310 to 305, which means maybe you get 1 hit less in the early game from Elder Titan and you survive his attacks. In my opinion, Elder Titan can be played as a 4 or 5 right now, still very strong, but you're definitely gonna feel the change on Elder Titan, in my opinion, even though it's only 5% movement speed. Sometimes this means you're not gonna attack once more because you can't follow the enemy hero and then you're just out of position and can't kill the enemy anymore. Enchantress and Nature's Attendants got buffed. You're getting 1 more Wisp, which makes you even more unkillable in the early game. Quite nice buff for Enchantress, actually. Enigma got a little nerf. The damage threshold is increased from 350 to 375. This makes, with this nerf, you need to attack once. Enigma's splitting image facet got nerfed a little bit. The damage threshold is increased from 350 to 375, which means your Eidolons need to attack once more to split. That's actually a really huge nerf to Enigma. But there's one quality of life change that your Eidolons, when created, will now automatically attack the same target as their parent. This doesn't change much for the pro scene or for Immortal or Divine MMR, but especially on lower MMR you will feel this change, I guess. After getting huge nerfs, the last patch, Kess got a little bit buffed. The Falcon Rush abilities that are unit targeted attacks now allow Kess to rush to the target, which means he can follow you a little bit more and he gets some more attacks in. Maybe this change alone will make him viable again. Talon Toss mana cost got decreased a little bit in the early game. He's really mana starved in the early game. This is actually a quite good buff also. Then the Shao Shurusai grants bonus stun and critical strikes, again from marks generated by parrying an enemy hero. I guess these buffs could make Cass viable again, but let's see what happens in the next days. Lich actually got a cool little buff. If you kill an enemy hero, your mana regen is increased again, especially in the early game. You maybe have mana for another Nova, or in fights you get that one more Frost Shield off because you have mana again. Actually quite nice buff for Lich. Lich is very weak right now. Maybe this helps him a little bit. The Lifestealer Gorestorm facet got buffed. You're dealing more damage now when the creep you're in has more HP. Could make you kill Lina's Slowburn facet is nerfed a little bit. Spell Amp now only affects the total spell damage before the burn damage is calculated, which it's like, depending on how much Spell Amp you have, like 50 to 100 damage less with your combo, which sometimes means you will survive the gank. Morphling, finally, the health change is now affected by negative health restoration effects. Items, especially neutral items like finally, the Morphling attribute shift health change is now affected by negative health restoration effects. Especially items like GD Pollen Bag now work quite good against Morphling, which is a must pick against Morphling right now, in my opinion. So this is actually a really good nerf. Morphling is, in my opinion, too strong as a carry right now. You can like push enemy towers in a short duration of time. If you lose a team fight, you most of the time lose a tower or even your Rex. So Morphling needs some more nerfs, in my opinion. Next up is Nature's Prophet. The Soothing Saplings got nerfed. The tree enchant radius got decreased by 300 range, which makes him a little bit less strong in teamfights, especially in the early game. But this is still a good and viable facet in my opinion. I don't like the Nature's Prophet facet, although they buffed it now. In my opinion, this is very undertuned. The Soothing Saplings facet is way stronger, I think. Also, Wrath of Nature base damage got decreased, which means you're getting like 1 to 3 last hits less with your Wrath of Nature. Also very much needed because Nature's Prophet just farms like crazy right now in this patch. Night Stalker got a little nerf. The Void Night duration decreased to. Night Stalker got a little nerf in the early game. The Void Night duration decreased a little bit from 2 to 1.6 seconds, which sometimes means you get one auto attack less off. But in my opinion, not a huge nerf, but you will feel it a little bit in the early game, not so much in the late game because the values are the same. Omni Knight had a little comeback in this patch, but now the Hammer of Purity got nerfed again. The cooldown is increased and damage is decreased, which means he will be less of a pain in the early game. Oracle's strength gain got decreased from 2.4 to 2.2. Makes him a little bit easier to focus targets. Doesn't seem like much, but sometimes the 50 to 100 HP just make the difference, especially like on level 5, 6, or 7. When you have like 50 HP less, you will definitely feel this. Also, the Reign of Destiny heal amp got decreased a little bit. I don't know why they nerfed Oracle. In my opinion, this hero wasn't very strong or outstanding. Heroes like Rasta or Lion are much stronger, but still got nerfed. The Ringmaster Sideshow Secrets, which no one picked because the other ones are stronger, got a little bit buffed, but in my opinion, the other facet is the stronger, so we won't see much of this. Sand King, although picked very often in the pro scene right now, still got a buff. The mana cost from Bloodrage decreased, makes him maybe stun 1 or 2 more times in the early stages of the game. Also, they buffed the Stinger Slow, from 8 to 12 seconds. The level 10 talent. The Bloodrage cast range on level 15 got increased, and the sandstorm damage per second also got increased. In my opinion, Sand King very viable before the buffs. Now it's even more viable. Maybe we will see him more often, especially in pub games. We're seeing him in pro games anyways, but in pub games, this hero will be stronger now. Shadow Shaman got nerfed. The Ether Shock damage, especially in the early game, got nerfed. And the Shackle cooldown is also increased. But this hero is still viable, still very strong. One of the best supports right now. Silencer, Facet, Suffer, and Silence got nerfed a little bit. The damage percentage decreased from 25 to 20% on max level. I don't know why they nerfed it. Silencer wasn't picked very much now in the last week because they removed the reverberating Silence Facet, which was really overpowered. But, well, yeah, they still nerfed the new facet. Let's see if Silencer gets picked in pro matches or in normal matches. I didn't see him much since the nerf, actually. Skywrath Arcane Bolt facet base damage increased on level 4 to 135 to 150. Not a huge buff. I don't know if you feel it. I didn't see much Skywrath Mage. I guess he needs some more buffs to be viable. Slark got a huge nerf actually. The health gain per second from his passive decreased from 10 to 5 in the early game. They did change the values for level 2, 3, and 4, but in the early game you will definitely feel this as a Slark. There's a huge difference between 10 and 5 health regen in the early game. Sniper base armor increased. This makes you trade much better in the early game. Maybe we will see more sniper mid now because you're stronger in trading with the enemy hero. Tanky Sticky Bob damage is increased by 15 damage on level 1, 10 damage on level 2, and nothing on level 4. Makes Sticky Bomb a little bit stronger in the laning phase. Templar Assassin, mana cost from Refraction increased by 10 mana. I don't know, this still Templar Assassin Refraction mana cost got increased by 10 mana. Actually, in my opinion, this hero is still super strong. The mana cost increase doesn't change much in the early game, especially not in the late game. The reflection bonus damage got decreased by 5 in the early game. This makes a change actually, especially with the nerf to the melt armor reduction in the last patch. Makes it easier to lane against TA now. Terrorblade's innate got nerfed a little bit. The damage penalty when the illusion is not in range is increased to 60%, which makes him farm a little bit weaker, and also your towers don't get pushed that hard if he's not nearby. Actually a quite good nerf for Terrorblade. And now my favorite nerf of the patch, Tinker. The defense matrix no longer blinks Tinker if he's rooted or leashed, which means if you have an Atos, he's not gonna blink out of your shit and get away. This is actually one of my favorite nerfs in this patch. There should be more nerfs to Tinker still. This hero is, especially in pub games, very, very strong. If you don't buy a Nullifier or have some heroes like Pugna or something that can make him weak in the team fights, he's just gonna melt you. But this is a good nerf for Tinker in my opinion. True Warlord facet, the bad influence facet for better trends got nerfed. The max fervor stacks decreased from 15 to 12. Actually, I don't know why they nerfed this. In my opinion, True Warlord's ultimate is shit anyways. You get countered by disarm or by Yules in the early game and in the mid game until you have your BKB. You're not doing anything with Troll in this patch. No need to nerf him actually, but they did. Underlord. The Fiend's Gate mana cost got decreased from 200 to 175. Good buff for Underlord. He's actually most of the times mana starved, so this helps him a little bit. Osa's overpowers low resistance got rescaled, so it only is 25% at max level, or at all levels, makes him a little bit easier to play on lane, especially against heroes like Venomancer or other heroes that slow you. But in the late game, you get kited a lot more now. The 15% slow increase resistance decrease makes it very hard for Ursa to not get kited in teamfights. Also, they nerfed his Fury swipes against Roche. Not a huge nerf, but makes it harder for you to do Roche sometimes in some teamfight. They nerfed the Visage Facet Grave Shield's secondary target penalty is now increased from 50 to 70%, which means he deals less damage, has less movement speed, and is weaker on lane and also in mid and late game because he deals less damage in teamfights. Warlock's Chaotic offering the Golem's permanent immolation is now affected by Warlock's AoE increases. There are games where you get Gleipnir or have the Dizon Bloodrage, which makes Warlock stronger with this buff, but most of the damage from the Golems comes from the right clicks anyways, so it's a nice little buff, but it doesn't change much for Warlock. That's it with the new patch. 7.3b is out and live now. You should play some games and have fun in Dota, guys. There are some nerfs I actually liked, the Tinker nerf and the Slug nerf. And if you liked my video, subscribe to my channel. Goodbye.